This is another archival upload of my previous mix critique videos. Again, I apologize for the vertical format that this video is about to switch to. This is 91 through 95. This track was sent in by Gabriel. First thing is it's too quiet. I'm gonna have to turn this up a little bit so I can actually hear things. But what I'm hearing so far is the drums are a little too out front. It doesn't sound like they're actually sitting in the mix well. The guitars are also way above everything else. Like the vocals should be higher than both of those things. The vocals should be the focus of the song, and right now it's drums and guitar. It also sounds like you scoop the mids like a lot on the guitar and the bass, so it sounds a little on the thin side. Alright, so I think you have a lot of processing issues here. I think you did too much processing too early. The compression on the drums, you definitely fucked up. Like, it sounds like you set the attack time way too soon. You need to set that a little slower because you need to let the drum transient actually come through before the compression kicks in. You definitely EQ'd the guitars too much. You took too much out of the mid-range. They sound thin. What you need to do here is spend more time just getting an overall balance with just the faders before you start using plugins. You probably got a quick little mix, or you went instrument by instrument or something, and you started processing and trying to make things sound good individually, and you took the life out of the whole song. So spend more time getting a mix with just the faders. Spend like a solid half hour only adjusting faders before you touch any plugins. Then you can start to fix specific problems with the plugins. This track was sent in by Seth. Alright, right away that bass is too loud. It's muddying up everything. It's clashing too much with the guitars. You need to make the bass and the guitars like work well together. Right now the bass is just completely overpowering the guitars, and it's adding a lot of mud to the mix in general. Alright, when the bass goes to the lower notes there, it's sitting a little bit better in the mix, but it's still a little too much. But especially when it was playing higher notes earlier on, it was completely clashing with the guitars. The other thing I'm hearing is the drums. There's a little too much room sound or just too much reverb. The drums need to come up more so we can actually feel the punch and the attack of the drums themselves. Now it just they kind of sound just like a washy, reverby background element at this point. You need those more up front to really cut through everything else and give the song the energy it needs. So overall, that wasn't bad. Most of your tones sounded good, like your guitar tone sounded good, your bass tone sounded good, your drum tone sounded good. Your EQ settings were fine, your compression settings sounded mostly okay. I think the biggest thing is you need to make sure that that bass isn't clashing with the guitar too much, and you just gotta spend more time balancing things with just the faders because the drums are way too far in the background and there's way too much room sound on the drums. I think spending a little more time just adjusting the faders and making sure that everything's at the proper level that way, and then also maybe adding a little bit more mix bus compression, I think those two things would help this track a lot. This track was sent in by Billy. Alright, so I thought the snare was sounding muffled like that as a stylistic choice, and that it would probably switch after the intro was over, but it still sounds muffled even after the piano came in. I would assume that that's where it would have opened up normally. If the snare track sounds like that for the whole track, you definitely need to adjust the EQ on your snare. It sounds really muffled. It's not cutting through the mix at all. It sounds like you put a telephone effect on it. So far the instrumentation is pretty cool, but that snare being so dead is really ruining the track for me. It also sounds like you could benefit from just some overall more mix bus compression on everything, just get things moving a little bit more than they are. Right now everything's pretty stagnant. Honestly, all the instrumental tones are really good other than that snare. So fix that snare, you'll be a lot better off real quick because everything else already sounds pretty good. So that was a pretty cool track. Super lo-fi, it's kind of cool. Yeah, really the big things are it's a little quiet overall, like definitely the volume should come up a little bit. That snare definitely needs more top end to it. It sounds super dry and muddy. It just needs a little bit more of that top end pop to cut through better. And then I think a little bit more mix bus compression just to get things pumping just a tiny bit, just so there's a little more ebb and flow to the whole track. I think that those couple of things would do wonders for this track. This track was sent in by Ethan. You know, when that little like denat comes in, that was awesome. It's so subtle, but it immediately grabbed my attention and the tone of it is fantastic. Join the righteous, Alright, vocals don't sound great, there's not enough energy, and they definitely need to be tuned. They're very pitchy. I know a lot of people are like adamantly against tuning vocals, but at this point, you just, unless you are like the best singer in the world, you have to tune vocals. We're all so used to tuned vocals at this point that if they're even a little off key, it just sounds weird to us. There's so much modern music that has tuned vocals that not having tuned vocals immediately sounds out of place. The backing track is pretty good. I wish the snare cut through a little bit more, but yeah, dude, those vocals are really killing it for me. They're super, super pitchy. I like that bass part that just came in, but it's a little over the top. That should definitely be just a little bit more subtle. Damn, I am, damn me, you see me on a cross. You a Prince fan, Ethan? This was sent in by Kenneth. The lead tone's pretty good. I would like a little bit more reverb. That rhythm tone is not good. It's super, super thin. It sounds like there's like barely any of the low mid-range in that at all. Drums sound okay, but they're lacking energy. Also, that kick is really out of time. Yeah, dude, your drummer's feet are not in time at all. That kick is way off. Vocals sound halfway decent, but again, the rhythm tone is not working. It sounds way too thin and also sounds a little out of tune. The best part of that was the vocals. The vocals sounded pretty solid. Other than that, tune your guitars meticulously. You should be tuning before every single take. Your guitar and your bass tones need a lot of work. That's not a mixing thing. You need to get those right at the source. The drum tones were okay, but the drummer needs to work on his footwork like a lot. Like he needs to tighten up overall in general, especially in a genre like this. If the drummer isn't super, super tight, nothing else is going to be. The drummer is the backbone of the track, especially in this kind of a genre. You need him to be super, super tight. You need to edit the drums before you record the rest of it. You need those drums to be spot on.